Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. My name is Mark Zuroff. I am sitting as chair of this proceeding. This has to do with 108 Center Street. Before we will begin, I'll confirm that all members and other persons anticipated to participate on the agenda are present and can hear me. So members, when I call your name, please respond. Randolph Mecklejohn.
I'm present.
Jesse Geller.
Present.
Those are the members of the board. From the staff, we have Maria Morelli.
Present.
And I think the rest of it is the applicant's representatives who will identify themselves as we go through. I remind everyone that all speakers should identify themselves by name prior to speaking. This hearing of the ZBA in the open session is being conducted remotely and in a manner that is consistent with the legislature's extension of the provision initially made under Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 executive order concerning the now expired state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the coronavirus. This body is authorized to meet entirely remotely so long as adequate public access is provided. Adequate public access does not include public participation unless such participation is required by law. This hearing may feature public comment. For this hearing, the ZBA is convening by video conference via Zoom as posted on the town's calendar, which identifies how the public may access the meeting. Be advised that this hearing is and that some attendees may be participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you and take care not to screen share via your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this board are also available to the public and may be accessed through the town website or by request from the planning staff. Finally, before turning to the agenda, I will cover some ground rules that will permit clear and effective conduct of our business and help to ensure accurate hearing minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda, or actually Maria will. After they conclude their remarks, I will invite each member by name, provide any comment, question, or motion. Please hold yours until your turn is called. Please also remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking and to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Before responding, please wait until the floor is yielded to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in sidebar comment with other members, please do so through me or Maria. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting, and I don't anticipate a vote, but each vote taken in this hearing will be conducted by roll call vote. For the public comment component of this hearing, I will first ask members of the public, if there are any who wish to speak, to identify themselves by name and address only. Maria will call upon you by name. Please enter your name in the chat section indicating that you want to speak. You can find the chat section at the bottom of your screen. Click on the icon and that chat window will appear on the right, and Maria will queue members in the order in which the request is received. Additionally, we will ask if members of the public who are calling in would like to speak in any aspect of this project. For this meeting, I will remind any member of the public that is allowed to speak to confine their comments to the subject matter of this hearing and this hearing alone. There is adequate other times for final comments on the proposal. So I think we've covered all the ground rules, and Maria, I'll turn it over to you to discuss tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Mark. I'm Maria Morelli, Senior Planner in the Regulatory Division of the Planning Department. I just wanted to give a staff report. So the purpose of this hearing is to really tie up some loose ends and go over very briefly some of the outstanding materials that we had requested over the course of the hearing. Namely, there's usually at the end of a hearing or toward the end of a hearing, we like to loop in the building commissioner expressly to look at the preliminary building code analysis, as well as the proposed foundation. And Dan Bennett is the building commissioner who is reviewing those documents. He has not raised any flags for this hearing. So for the next hearing, we will incorporate any recommended conditions or comments when we discuss waivers and conditions on December 13th. We did receive a final packet that from the, actually, I've just got a note from Randolph Randolph just wants to explain or disclose to the board his relationship with the geotech firm. So I forgot to turn to Randolph first. Sorry,
Yeah, so
Randolph.
I didn't mean to interrupt, Maria, but since you've called on me, I briefly consulted with town council today to discuss a business relationship existing between my employer, an architecture firm in Boston, and Haley and Aldrich, which is the geotechnical consultant to the applicant. Their report was among the materials that we are received before this meeting. Town council's office advises me this does not rise to the level of a matter that needs to be disclosed to the appointing authority, but he recommended nevertheless that I make a simple statement about it in this meeting to acknowledge that the relationship exists and it should not interfere with my duties as a member of this board. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Randolph.
Randolph.
We appreciate that. So as I was saying, the building commissioner is reviewing the preliminary building code analysis, as well as the proposed foundation, and any comments or recommendations will be incorporated in the draft conditions that we'll review on December 13th. The other main topic of this hearing is in regard to the mechanism that the applicant will be using to ensure that the residents of this project, 108 Center, have in perpetuity access to the open space amenities that were promised in this public hearing. The board was very keen on there being a legal instrument that would ensure that in perpetuity that the residents of this project would have access to the amenities that were reviewed. There was a campus-wide approach during this public hearing, and you did see examples of landscape plans with site circulation showing how residents would be able to enjoy the amenities on the other parcels at 100 Center and 112, 120 Center. And at a certain point in the hearing, we will turn it over to Jennifer Gilbert. What she had discussed with me a few weeks ago was that the applicant has agreed to use the legal mechanism of cross easements. We don't have a draft for you this evening. So what the applicant will propose is that we'll have a condition in the decision that states prior to the issuance of a building permit, these cross easements will be submitted to town council for review and approval. And the nature of those cross easements will be that in perpetuity, the residents of 108 Center will have access to the outdoor amenities at 100 and 112. Related to that, at the next hearing, which is scheduled for December 13th, because there are and the applicant will show a site plan that shows the nature of all the areas for the cross easement. So there are a number, and so we'll provide a visual so that you understand what constitutes the nature of the cross easements. There is one related to parking spaces. There are currently five parking spaces that straddle the property line, shared with 100 and of course 108, and those 5 parking spaces will be converted into 2 parallel parking spaces for the exclusive use, or handicapped parking space for the exclusive use of 108 Center. And that will mean that 100 Center, which received a comprehensive permit, that permit will need to be modified. And as you've gone through this before, whenever an applicant wants to modify a comp permit, they submit a notice or request for the ZBA's determination of insubstantial change. And that's insubstantial versus substantial. So we will have an administrative item first on the December 13th agenda regarding 100 Center. And I just wanted to mention that, not to steal Jennifer's thunder, but just to really talk about the upcoming schedule. While I'm on the subject of the schedule, for December 13th, that's the next hearing, we will be reviewing waivers and draft conditions. And I plan to have the entire draft decision available, at least 5 days prior to that hearing. So, and it will be posted on the website. So of course the applicant will have an opportunity to review it. And of course, the ZBA. Usually we like to have, we don't have to, but sometimes we plan like another hearing after we review of draft conditions just in case we need it. I had tentatively put out December 27th. I don't know if Jesse and Mark are available. Randolph did inform me this morning that he won't be available. Just so that you know, at least 2 members of the board can vote if they wish. If they don't vote on December 13th and you wanted to have another hearing, if you did meet on December 27th, 2 members of the board could vote. Of course, you might decide to vote on December 13th, and that's your prerogative. The deadline to close this hearing has been extended from January 8th to February 27th. And that extension came about when the previous planning director decided to ask DHCD, the Department of Housing and Community Development, for various extensions on behalf of the ZBA. So I think we're in pretty good shape. I think that, I say that because certainly we never want to rush the ZBA. We never want to rush this process. However, this particular project did receive preliminary approval from DHCD to apply for funding. As you know, the town has committed to over $3 million in funding, and the state does have a very hard deadline for the applicant to submit an application to DHCD, and that deadline is January 12th. And what they will need for that deadline or that application is evidence that a decision was filed with the town clerk. So I'm just giving you really the arc of this process. Again, I think this project is in excellent shape. There really are no outstanding issues that we have to resolve. It's really a matter for incorporating any comments from the town departments into the draft decision. So we would use this time, of course, if you have any issues with what the project team is going to be talking about next, about cross easements or any other related matter that you had asked for information, now would be a good time to raise those questions so that we can resolve them in an expedient manner.
Maria, administratively, I do want to make it clear to the public and to the board that our next hearing on December 13th will be actually a 2-part process. We will first have a meeting concerning the requested modification of the adjacent parcel at 100 Center Street. That is not a public hearing. That is a meeting of the board to review the request. Will we have enough time to review the actual request before we actually meet?
Yes, so we should be getting this week the packet from Jennifer DePazzo Gilbert, which would be the nature of the request and the notice for the request for a determination of insubstantial change. So that matter will be coming, that packet will be coming to you well in advance of December 13th.
So that on December 13th at 7 o'clock, presumably, we will convene to meet, but it will not be a public hearing. It will be a meeting of just the board and the staff. And then we'll discuss the modification. At the conclusion of that, assuming that we take action, which we probably will, then we will open the public hearing to discuss waivers and conditions.
That's great. Well, the hearing, of course, is open, but we will turn to the 40B hearing. And also, if I could clarify, because this tends to be a new thing for the public, it's a public meeting, that administrative manner, and the public, of course, is able to observe. That's why we call it a public meeting. So,
Right, but it will not be open for public comment.
Correct.
All right. I don't have any other questions right now. I'm anxious to hear from the applicant. Board members, you have any questions about the process or about what's about to happen this evening? Jesse?
Okay, I think
Yeah.
before we end the hearing, I just want to circle back on December 27th. But at this point, I will turn it over to Jennifer if she has any remarks.
Sure. Thank you very much. And thank you for that overview and comprehensive report, Maria. So there was quite a long list of additional items that Maria wanted and requested. Everything from an updated landscape plan to make sure you've got your hydrant flow test into the water department. And all of those items have been satisfied. In fact, tonight, Maria, you'll see in your inbox that we also got you and Dan Bennett the updated waiver list, the updated zoning table, and an updated site plan that shows the setbacks and dimensional relief that goes along with the waiver list, so that you can review that with Dan Bennett. And we're happy to have the architects on a call if you'd like to go over that with the building commissioner to make sure it's in good shape for our next hearing. In addition to all of the items that have since been submitted, we came up with an easement diagram, and I'm really happy to report that having met with the Hebrew Senior Life team, the mechanism, I think the board was right, the best mechanism would be cross easements to make sure that the open space and the walkways and pathways and other items campus-wide that we've been showing you are protected and are in existence in perpetuity. And my suggestion is to do that by way of a condition in the actual comprehensive permit. As Maria mentioned, we would not be able to get a building permit until that easement document or documents along with the diagram that could be referenced in the condition, so that the diagram of all of the easements that are necessary for this project could be an actual exhibit to the comprehensive permit. So if Patricia or whoever's controlling the screen could pull up that easement diagram, it's a good visual and we can sort of walk through it. I think you'll see everything we've been presenting. So here you have the easement diagram, and what you're going to see here is in the red dashed boxes. These are all of the areas of open space that we have shown you as we walked around the site. Everywhere that folks can sit, behind 100 Center, there's another area. And then you have, if you're going over to the right, you have the lawn area. And then going all the way over to 112, you had that courtyard where we showed some pictures of concerts and other activities. And all of the seating areas are also marked out in a dashed red lines around the entire campus area. And those are noted as the open space access easements for all of the buildings, right? Not just 108. And then in the lighter blue line are the additional pathways where folks would walk around, and we had shown you the circulation diagram. So that's the proposed pedestrian circulation easement. And then in the thicker, darker blue line, that is a proposed trash removal and storage easement, because as we've been discussing, that does cross over to the 112 lot to bring that trash out to the street. And in the green, the smaller green box, an easement would be required there. That is for the transformer location, which is also just over the lot line at 112. And then the two handicap parking spaces are right on the left-hand side of the 108 building, but they are also just over the line on the 100 lot. And so that would also be part of the easement agreement. And with respect to the modification for 100, we did have several discussions with Dan Bennett on the mechanism to make sure that those parking spaces can be dedicated to residents at 108. And what he suggested was to add to the waiver list a reference to the zoning bylaw section that allows for parking spaces to be off-site or on another lot. So you'll see that in the updated waiver list. And then because the number of required parking spaces for 100 Center was 39 spaces, that has not changed, because you will see when I submit the request for an insubstantial determination, I'll also include the language from the original 40B for 100 Center. That required 39 spaces, but gave some flexibility to have up to 14 of those 39 spaces in the 112 lot if needed. So there's no reduction in parking. We would simply be asking for a determination that adding 2 spaces on the 100 lot to be dedicated to 108 is the modification, adding those 2 ADA spaces on the 100 lot. But I'll be submitting that, I hope this week, or certainly well in advance of the December 13th hearing. So this is the diagram, and I think it makes sense to add it as an exhibit to the decision. And then the language that we're proposing is that no building permit could issue until that easement agreement is drafted in place, on record, and has been approved by town council. So that's that. And the other 2 items that we wanted to go over with you this evening is Dylan was going to briefly tell you how he responded to the request to provide more detail in the landscape plan. And then the other question that came from, I believe it was Randolph, was to add to the plans the dimensions of the canopy, and Patricia can pull that up and go over that as well. But we think we've come up with a really great solution. I know that this is also, this cross easement for open space is also being discussed at another 40B pending case at 83 Longwood, where the applicant also owns side-by-side lots and is proposing to provide the bulk of open space on a neighboring property, and similarly would be providing a cross easement agreement prior to building permit. And I think that 2 of you are sitting on that case, so you know what I'm talking about. Happy to take any questions, or we could move right over to Dylan and then Patricia for the canopy, and then come back to all of it, whatever the board prefers. Jennifer,
just for clarification, I'd like to ask and make sure that we're all on the same page, that this easement plan that you're showing us now, which it's hard to read on the screen, but I understand what it conveys, but the easements that you're going to propose will probably, and more likely should, include this plan to be recorded with it, or something
similar.
what we would
do is we would take this plan and we would actually have a survey done. We would actually have a survey that would go along and be on record, an actual survey that shows the specific areas, dimensions, and everything. We would want that done by a stamped survey that would be an exhibit to the actual easement agreement. Absolutely. This is just a sort of a placeholder.
And then one other question that I have, and this should be obvious, but maybe it's not, is that all of the residents of all of these buildings will have unrestricted ability to walk through the building to get to these these accessible areas, especially since, I mean, you have a roof deck on the top of 100. Obviously, you don't want people being stopped by security and saying you're not a resident here. So I would assume that the easement will include pedestrian access through the structures so that the residents can walk the most direct way.
Yes.
I don't know how you show that, but you can certainly write it.
We can certainly write it. That's right.
Okay. Other than that, I have no questions about this particular issue. Randolph.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. This may be a related question, and I apologize. I don't know, of course, quite as much about cross easements as some of the rest of you. But let me ask it this way, Jennifer, when you, and this goes back to something you had a phrase, that this is for all the buildings, or words to that effect when you began to speak. And my question about it is, are you proposing to do more in these easements than create the access for the residents of the 108 building to these spaces on the campus? And not, for example, to create a similar right for the residents of 100 to enjoy the open space at 112. I mean, the question is, are you doing more than is needed for this building's comprehensive permit?
No, we want to make sure that this is, as the board wanted, a campus-wide approach, so that all the residents will be able to walk these areas, enjoy all the open spaces. So they're cross easements.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jesse, any comments?
Couple of questions. One, Jennifer, just remind me, where is the senior center?
Yeah, the senior center is, if you're looking at this plan, it's right behind, to the right of the 108 building.
Okay. So in terms of just access for all of the residents, if you do cut a deal with the senior center, obviously everyone campus-wide should have that access. I only raise it because I don't see the blue line going all the way, but I assume that's the intent.
That is the intent. We can't commit to that. The town has to jump through some hoops too, legally, right, to bid things, and if there's an attachment and so on and so forth. But absolutely, if we do strike a deal with the senior center, that access would and would be, yes, clear.
Right. And then the real substantive question I have is, do any of these properties have financing on them?
Yes, and we had a long discussion with the larger Hebrew Senior Life team, including their legal counsel, about that, and they are confident that they will be able to get all of the necessary sign-offs that are needed.
You knew where I was going. So you obviously need sign-offs, and you're going to need subordinations.
We do. We need sign-offs and subordinations, and I'm working with Rachel Lerner, Hebrew Senior Life's in-house counsel, on that, because that was why I hesitated at the last hearing and said, "Oh, give me some time. I really have to think about this," because I knew I had to connect with them, because I'm not privy to all of the different financing arrangements. But after speaking with in-house counsel, and we all came to the conclusion that this is what the board wants, this is what the board needs, and we will strive to get that done, or we won't get a building permit.
Yeah, I think somehow that needs to find its way into
The conditions.
the language, the priority of the easement.
Absolutely.
Right. Somehow.
I'll make a note of that.
Okay.
That we absolutely add that.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, move on.
Okay,
Jennifer.
thank you. Yes, Dylan, could you just briefly pull up the landscape plans that were recently submitted to Maria, and just go over what you did in response to the request from the board, and then when you're done, we'll turn it over to Patricia to go over the canopy details.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, Dylan Stevens, I'm a landscape architect with Stantec. So this was a response to, as we were showing the open spaces around the campus and talking about improvements, wanted to show that these would actually be submitted as part of the formal set of plans. So this is just the landscape plan from the set, but this is showing the improvements to the lawn area, the block wall, around the lawn to level that out, the revised walking path, and the proposed plantings kind of between the parking and the walkway, and between the property line and the walkway. And again, this includes kind of the restriping of that parking lot, a wood board fence along the property line, and just is reflected throughout the drawings that will be submitted as part of the comprehensive permit. So happy to take any questions on this. Or
Randolph.
Yeah, just a question. If you could maybe zoom in on the drive loop on Center Street. I'm just wondering what those 3 black rectangles are. Are those plantings or something that separate the back of sidewalk from the
Yep,
drive area?
they're modular planters
Planters,
with
okay.
some perennials in them, right? So they would be low, meeting the height requirements for the lines of sight, but could swap out plantings to provide some green in there and some color because it is a pretty tight area.
Okay, and then to the right and the left, the white curving area looks like a pedestrian sidewalk, and then beyond that, the diagonal hatching represents shrubs, plantings, things like that.
Correct. Primarily ground covers, ornamental grasses, perennials, things that are low and also can allow for some snow storage from the hardscape.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No?
Nothing.
Jennifer, back to you.
Okay, yes. Patricia, why don't you pull up the plan and go over the details that were added to the canopy?
Sure. My name is Patricia Rizzo. I'm a designer with Icon Architecture along with Janice Lamaya here. We can go straight to the plan. And Janice will be chiming in as well to talk more about what we're doing with the canopy. As many of you saw in previous renders, we do have this canopy that starts right at the entry of the building that kind of loops around all the way to the back to emphasize the walkway that goes from the front of Center Street all the way to the rear back patio. So what we are showing here is that canopy that just wraps around all the way to the back of the space. Actually, sorry, I've got a little, my apologies. There we go. So you can see that the canopy starts right at the entry and wraps all the way back to the edge of the rear back patio. So we do have a few dimensions for you here. We have a lot of the dimensions refer to the lot lines of the actual 108 site, 21 feet from the lot line, and you can see at the start of the curve to the driveway to the canopy, as well as 6'6" along the side lot line that hugs the side of the Dinesh parking lot and the entry to the back parking area of 100 Center Street. We do have a different kind of canopy in the back that showcases just these bump outs for the cafe, more of like window seating. And that does do a 2-foot separation between the lot line and those canopies, but that still has a lot of walkway area for allowing to connect that front canopy that wraps around the back to the back rear patio. So we do have, I can show the elevations just so you can see what we're doing regarding height-wise. In previous sessions, we did talk about raising the first floor to really emphasize that front entry, expressing the windows for the interior public spaces for the site. So we are having from the ground level to the bottom of the canopy 11 feet to really bring the people in from Center Street along the front and to the back. And the canopy itself is 1 foot in depth to really give a strong line from the start of the canopy to the end of the canopy. And I think that I have everything. Janice, if you want to chime in.
If you want to just go to the next elevation, it just expresses that strong line all the way down that ground plane with a lot of that emphasis really on that, whether it's the open space or the articulation of the canopy, that will be a constant height, a constant dimension. We're integrating lighting into there and really be the focus of that pathway.
And just to emphasize those back canopies, we're thinking more about a green covering for solar shading, especially when it comes to those window seats in the cafe area. So it's not a continuation of the front canopy, but it still gives that overhang for the pedestrians in the rear back patio. I think that's all for us. We'll open it for questions.
Randolph,
No questions. Thank you.
Jesse?
None.
All right, I think we've seen what we need to see. I'm comfortable with the presentation that we've gotten.
Thank you. Nothing further from the team at this time.
Mark, I just
All
wanted to
right,
let you know.
Maria, I guess there are some members of the,
Yes.
go ahead.
Yes, sorry. I just wanted to let you know, I believe we have 3 or 4 members of the public who wish to speak.
That I was just about to acknowledge that. So,
Okay.
but I do remind those people that wish to speak that they try to confine your remarks to what we have been presented with tonight, and try not to overlap. Listen to the people ahead of you, and if you have something to add, by all means, add it. But if you have the same thing to say, we understand your concerns. There's no need for us to hear it multiple times. With that being said, Maria, you can promote whomever wishes to speak.
Yeah, I've promoted Naomi Eiler, and Naomi, you've been promoted, so you can unmute and share your video if you like.
Unmute, okay. I just have a very brief issue. The use of the roof deck at 100 Center Street as part of the open space. The roof deck should have a really beautiful view all over the area, but unfortunately, the type of fencing that has been used on it basically can't be seen through. And so people are deprived of the view. And I would like to emphasize that that fencing needs to be changed so that that area can really be used as open space, because it will be open and the view will be there. Also, it's too bad that somehow one roof deck couldn't be incorporated on the roof of 108, but I gather there is no elevator access and that some solar panels will take up most of the space. And it's just sort of too bad that that couldn't have been part of the plans. And that finishes me.
Thank you for your comment.
Okay, I'm going to promote Margot Skalaki. It's like a little bit of a lag, but okay, Margot, you've been promoted. You can unmute if you like and share your video.
Thank you, Maria. Good evening, everyone. I have lots of questions. As Maya mentioned, nothing seems like it has changed with regards to adding green space. The only thing that I saw in the diagram was what's already there with regards to, 3 little benches, a little bit in the back of 100. Actually, if you go out the back door of 112, that's a little pathway that leads you to the front of the senior center. I'm not sure how that aligns with 108, but maybe it's a big kitty corner. We're talking about 12 stories at 112. I actually am not sure how many stories are at 100. And then adding 5 more stories, if that's correct, or was it 7? And to have such minimal possibility of space, I actually want to bring up what Mayim said. There's little gardening on the left of 112. And what really concerns me is, and the question is part of that, 112 already has these huge generators to the left, right where this little gardening section is. And what I heard, I think I heard Dylan, if I'm correct, or someone mentioned, maybe Jennifer, that 108 is going to be seeping into 112. 1 with the trash, and 2 with more generators. That means 112 is going to have all of this noise. These generators are not purring kitties. They are all constantly on, and they're loud enough. So personally, I don't know why 2 more is being put on that side when they were already there. I don't know what you mean by the garbage, the trash. My question is that an inside facility or an outside facility? If it's an outside facility, then that might cause a big problem in the summertime, and it's going to go to 112. So my questions are, please let me know about that trash. Let me know about where, when Rhonda first started this, it was all about extension of green space. And instead, nothing, there is no green space that has been added on that I can see or that I have heard. What does the cafe mean? If you could repeat what you said about parking, because I had to leave the room, but I just got the tail end about parking. I think it's extremely important, and I've said this, I think, every time I've gotten to speak. 112 Center Street has 112 residents. It has staff members from the whole campus. And if 108, which is fine, needs parking spaces, it's fine. But if it causes residents that move into 108 to not get a parking space, that does not seem fair or correct or anything like that. So if you can repeat that, that would be great. I really would like to know, simply from my own curiosity, what kind of windows 108 is going to have. 112, since the makeover, has these little tiny windows, which with an HVAC system that has had problems with getting new original filters, that this building had to go ahead to restructure. And yeah, it's just like every time something seems to get smaller and smaller instead of more expansive, especially in the green space. And I'll await your answers, and I might have another question. Thanks so much.
Okay, Mark, do you want to wait for all public comment and then turn over to the applicant for any responses? Mark, I think you need to unmute.
I'm sorry. Jennifer, I assume you're taking notes, and you can, I'll give you an opportunity to respond to everyone. So I think we have one more public comment.
Right, okay. I'm going to promote Cotter Jaffe. Sorry about the lag. You should be appearing soon. Okay, Carter, I've promoted you. You can unmute and share your video now if you like. Okay. Right, you can speak now, Carter. Carter, are you able to hear me? You can speak now. Okay. Okay.
Mr. Jaffe, you're on.
I don't think we can hear you, Carter. You'll have to check your microphone. We can't hear you. I'm sorry, we still can't hear you. Carter, you've muted yourself. You know, I think you might be having microphone issues. It's not a matter of muting or unmuting. If you want to, if you want to just leave the meeting and come back in, maybe that'll work. Just maybe you've overlooked an audio button that says that gives you, that you allow permission to use your computer microphone. if you try that coming in again, that should work. Okay, hopefully we'll still be here. Okay, so I think while Carter is just working that out, I'm sorry that we can't hear you right now, Carter. Perhaps we can turn it over to Jennifer to respond to some of the questions that came up during public
Sure,
comment.
I'm going to respond, and then I'm going to ask Janice to speak to the window design. So what I heard first was some concern that the trash would be outside. There will be a trash room. The trash will be inside. It will only be rolled out on pickup days, both trash and recycling. It is not outside. The only reason that there is an easement is because when it comes out of the building, it actually gets rolled up across the lot over the 112 lot. With respect to parking, there is no parking proposed for this project except for the 2 dedicated ADA spaces. So only 2 spaces. The reason there's an easement required for those 2 spaces is because they just go over the lot line onto the 100 center lot. But there's been no reduction to any other parking requirements either at 112 or at 100. Those numbers remain unchanged. Then I heard a concern about noise there from generators or other equipment. There is a noise bylaw, and it's a standard condition that all of the equipment on site must be tested. It must be have the specifications to meet the decibel level of the town's noise bylaw, and the building inspectors do require that to be tested at the time of a certificate of occupancy. It's my understanding those generators that generator will not be on at all times. And that small green box that I showed you on the easement diagram was just the location of where that generator is going to be, just slightly over the lot line at 112. With respect to the question on the design of windows, I really can't speak to that, so I'd like Janice or Patricia to speak to that, please.
Sure, I can speak to the windows. Janice Mamayak, Icon Architecture. The windows are designed to meet the passive house standard, so there'll be a triple glaze. There's actually 3 panes of glass in the window. So they're pretty hefty frames in order to support that. That is for thermal performance, but also has the benefit of acoustic performance as well. And while we are restricted by the window wall ratio, so the size of the windows, they will be appropriately sized for the units. And as shown, I believe they're larger than the adjacent properties.
For the benefit of the public, I think it's important for all of you to know that all of these issues have gone through peer review for the town and have been discussed in detail with the staff. And so even though you may be hearing about these things for the first time, they have been discussed and addressed. And I'm sure Jennifer would agree, as would Maria, with regard to that. So I understand you're asking questions. This is not a dialogue. This is a hearing. And we do want to hear from the public as to your questions and comments. But again, it's not a dialogue. This is not back and forth. That's going on in meetings between the applicant and staff. So let me just leave that comment out there. And Maria, if you want to promote somebody else, you may.
Okay, I've promoted Ray Yasiello, and he is on his way. Why don't we just, Carter, can you just say something to see if we can hear you? Okay.
I'm back.
Okay, Carter. While we're waiting for Ray, why don't you present your comments?
Yeah, I think that if Maria, did you circulate the letter yet that I sent before 4 o'clock?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
All right. If you will take that serious, it will save a lot of public embarrassment and ridicule, because this is the last, my Hail Mary is to do a film with residents that have been there 10, 20, 30 years and compare the reality of our physical plant that 100% of our skin has lived in 24/7 for years and years and years. This is being portrayed as somehow a doable project. And some of no resident knows you've waived like setbacks and how far away the buildings can be and how you're going to stuff, this, square peg into the round jar of whatever. This is like a total abomination, but you have to at least walk the grounds and see how our building was treated 4 or 5 years ago, what they promised and what we got. Our building has been set back 50 years, in the modernization program with the alleged $38 million budget. You have to walk it with the residents and see, otherwise we're going to do this film, release it to the public and say, my offer to come there and talk to the only people that are aware of every inch of this property and every promise made, and living in a construction site for 2 years with a curtain around it where we couldn't see the sky. And then this pandemic, and now they want to blow up the density after 150 new apartments have come online in the last 6 months within 100 yards of us. They don't realize the school was doubled or tripled in size. They don't realize the synagogues merged and got bigger and have more traffic. We have a few more very popular merchants 100 yards down, like Tate's. In other words, the reality of our neighborhood in this project is going to haunt you like the fireman case or something that was just the host agreements for that crowd. And this has got to be seen and dealt with in the real world with the real people who are going to have to live with your decision for whatever they've got left, 10, 20, 30 years, we hope. So once again, do not take this charade, this manufactured plan where they'll check, they even use the language, check the boxes, check the boxes. The notice for this meeting got Friday afternoon, So there are a lot of rush to accommodate somebody, even though most of us are, I think from the tribe and mean well and love the place and have 100% of our skin in it. Please, we should be 80% of the consideration. Not just me, but the 200 people that touch our property directly, right across the street, beside us, behind us, that allowed this abomination of our building, the only tricolored, building in the neighborhood, and the only one that basically could do whatever they want. They now have, the possibility that if this goes up and the block is going to be shut down for a year because of all of the connections that we witnessed happening on Winchester for a much smaller building, and on that corner, Fuller Street, because it was a much smaller building, and on the other corner, in other words, every single one of our corners was closed up for 6 to 18 months, or every other day, or that sort of thing. This is
Mr. Jaffe?
Yes.
Mr. Jaffe, I don't mean to
Okay.
cut you off. We did
All
read
right.
your letter. We did read your letter. I understand your concerns. Understanding this process, first of all, I can assure you that all of the hearings on this project were advertised and open to the public, that the staff of the town has worked very carefully with outside peer reviewers to review all of the aspects of this project, including traffic, construction management, and other aspects which may or may not interfere with your enjoyment of your home. But this is a process that has taken many months to get to this point. There has been ample opportunity for the public to speak. And just on your comments alone, saying that it's not going to be run right, or that the developer has done something wrong in the past, is not really relevant to what we are here for now. And that is on this building and this building alone. not your building or the other building adjacent to it, even though there's commonality between the three parcels. This building is being looked at as a separate construction issue that this board is carefully reviewing with the assistance of peers that are hired, and they are independent of the town. And so while I understand your comments and I understand your frustration with the process that's happened in the past, we are only dealing with the future here. So I appreciate your comments, but I think we get your point. So I appreciate you're taking the time to address us.
Much of this crowd with the same characters that allowed the abomination of what they
Mr.
did.
Carter, please do not indict anybody in it.
But I mean,
in
this
this.
is the same crowd, the same
It doesn't
people.
matter.
Okay, I think we have to turn to the next person who's
Right.
been waiting. Carter, I'm going to.
All right, I hope you
Thank you
like
for
the
your
video.
comments.
Mark, I hope you like the.
Okay, Ray, you've been patiently waiting. You can unmute.
Yeah, I am concerned about where are the contractors going to park. I have a resident sticker that allows me to park on Center Street. There are only 22 unmetered spaces on Center Street. Am I gonna have to get up like I did during the renovation of 112, like at 5:30 a.m. to get out there and get a legal parking space? And all those contractors sit in their trucks and with the engines running for like an hour or more before they go to work. And there's a pollution problem about that as well. I had asked Bernard Green at our initial meeting months ago if there will be any provision to get those people parked so that they don't take away spaces from me and from all of the healthcare workers and visiting nurses who come to 100 and 112, during this construction. I think that's a big thing. I mean, right now, Center Street is very full from like 8 in the morning until 5, 6, 7 at night, even without contractors. And, my observation was some of those guys come from a long ways away and they make sure they get there real early. So that is, I think, a real thing that needs to be addressed in terms of inconvenience to the residents and the people who work there. Okay, that's my first question. The second question is, are all the trees that are there now going to be left intact? And are they going to continue being alive after this project is done? Because I think to lose trees in this North Brookline, which is becoming more and more like a city, and Center Street, very charming as it is, but we're going to lose more trees. That's not good. I think that should be,
Ray, if I could respond, there are two aspects here. So the construction management plan does look at where construction workers park, and idling is not permitted. So it might be part of the agreement with the general contractor. We've done this before. We don't like to have construction vehicles or any vehicles idling. There is a no idling or a bylaw that we have, so that can be enforced.
I think it should be enforced with signs like they have in Boston. No.
True. That's another matter, but I can tell you what's in place, and I can tell you that with the construction management plan, there is continual enforcement under the jurisdiction of the building commissioner, and he does a great job and really tailoring these CMPs, these construction management plans for the particular site and project. And I imagine in the process with the director of engineering and the building commissioner, truck routes, parking places, idling, if there are permits that are issued to people like yourself or caretakers, that's coordinated with the transportation division. So I don't have specific answers for you about your particular situation, but it's the kind of thing that routinely gets handled in the CMP process. And in regard to the trees, there is a tree survey that was done that shows, I think I'm not sure if Dylan can just remind us how many trees would need to come down, but there are actually a number of trees that are going to be added. So they're really the the landscape program, including the tree conservation and growth. We were really pleased to see that the canopy is going to actually grow on this site, which is
Well,
not
in
easy to do.
50 years it'll grow, but right now, how many trees are going to come down?
Dylan, do you know offhand?
Sure. So there are 4 trees that need to be removed as part of the project. They're all invasive Norway maples. And there are 7 proposed trees to go back. None of the trees being removed are the public shade trees on the street along the road.
Great. Thank you, Dylan. Okay, Ray, I'm going to go to the next person, Mayam Barone. Thank you, Ray. Okay, so Mayam is on her way. Okay, Mayam, you've been promoted. You can unmute and share your video if you'd like. Okay, Mayam, are you able to look at the ribbon at the
Okay,
bottom?
I found the unmute.
Sweet,
Okay.
okay.
You won't be able to see me because I'm on a dark bus with a mask on, but thank you so much for letting me speak. Thank you for having these meetings. I really appreciate the openness of the meetings and the spirit of trying to do the best thing for the neighborhood and everybody in what basically is a really, I feel, a worthwhile project, and I don't oppose it. I know we need more affordable housing. I am a resident of 112 and have been for 6 years. And I have very little but very good things to say about Hebrew Senior Life and how it runs center communities. However, I'm concerned about the open space. I mean, there's been talk about how this is going to increase green space. I don't see any increased green space. I see loss of the green space that we have. All the blue lines are just like a 3-foot asphalt walk that goes behind the buildings. There's very little actual shrubbery. And I have to echo what Ray said, that taking 4 mature trees down and replacing them by 7 saplings does not get you the worth of what the trees are that we're losing. So I'm very sorry to hear that trees will be lost in this. But I'm just concerned about getting some green and open space at all in this project, because what I see there isn't. There really, I do not understand how you can count the roof garden at 100 as any kind of green space or open space. It is not. It's covered with asphalt, some kind of flooring material. You cannot see over the sides like you used to. And I'm not ever able to get even out onto that so-called roof garden. So that cannot at all. How can you count that as part of the green space? Maybe somebody can explain.
We have a bad connection.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to make sure it wasn't me. I'm sorry, Mayam, I think we're having trouble hearing you. If you can hear us, you're breaking up considerably. Sorry, Mayam.
Yeah, okay, well,
Okay, now we can hear you.
what I wanted to in the chat.
Okay.
I think I said what I wanted to in the chat, that I'm just very concerned about losing the little green space that we have. And I don't see how you can count the so-called roof garden on 100 as any kind of green space. It's not even open and accessible most of the time, and there's nothing green up there.
Okay, thank you, Mayam. And I think there is, Marga would like to speak again, so I'll defer to you, Mark.
Yeah, that's fine. One short additional comment would
Okay.
be acceptable.
All right, Margot, I'm promoting you. Okay, Margot, you've been promoted.
Well, so thank you for allowing me to come back on. Well, I second what Mayam's saying about 100. I have not been up there. I'm just wondering why originally Rhonda actually told Ray no trees would come down. Originally, there was such excitement from Rhonda about all of this new green space. And it feels like every meeting, it just disappears, and it has disappeared to not include one, as far as I can see on that blueprint, of something new. It's just the same as it's always been. So if someone can say, we are adding this and that, that would be great to understand in case I misunderstood. And what happened to the deterioration of the once excitement of all more green space and to get no new green space at all? Like, there has to be some type of, again, a compensation if this big building is going to be built. And I'm still concerned about those generators, and why aren't they put on the other side instead of 112 side? You know, a little negotiation for the other side, so we don't have to have 4 on our side. So that's my question. And what happened to the excitement of all the green space that is now not there? Did the 108 get larger, or what happened? Thank you.
For the record, I think it might be valuable to put out the fact that green space is not the issue. It is open space that we are concerned with. And open space does not have to be green. It may be just semantics, but I'm just pointing that out for the public. Jennifer, do you want to respond to any of these additional comments, please?
No, I think that we've shown the landscape plan. We've shown the increase in the back area that was set. The building was further set back to increase the seating, and I think we've gone over it at the last couple of hearings. So I don't have anything to add.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. Maria?
Okay, I don't think we have any more people who wish to speak. So it's would be a matter of if the board has any questions for me. Other than that, we can continue the hearing to December 12th. And if you do want to just look ahead to December 27th as a placeholder, if Jesse is able to attend, at least we'll have another hearing just in case we need it.
December 27th is
Maria.
open for me.
Okay, and you, Jesse?
I have that date already scheduled for this, but my preference would be that this be a vote of the entire panel.
Sure. Okay. Then what we will do is just see how much we get through on December 13th. So, and if we do need a date, I would like to maybe suggest if we do need a date in January, I would look at January 5th. Is that something that the board can do?
I can't answer that now.
Okay.
Maria,
I can probably, oh, that's December. Wait a minute. January.
Yes. Randolph, did you?
Maria, I was just going to say, with respect to the 27th, I like I said to you in a message today, it's likely there's a possibility that I will be out of town. I don't know that. I probably will by our meeting on the 13th, if that helps. I will probably have a plan at that point.
That's fine. That's fine. I really appreciate your being flexible. You all have been enormously flexible with such tight and demanding schedules. I'm just trying to be a project manager, so forgive me. So why don't we we'll focus on December 13th for now. We will cover waivers and conditions, and of course the administrative item on 100 Center first.
Okay, then that being completed, I believe that we have completed our business for this evening. I want to thank the staff for their good work, the board for continuing to stay with this, and the public for participating in the process, and the applicant for cooperating as much as you have with the town in their meetings. And so therefore, this meeting will be continued to the 13th of December, same place, same time, same station. And this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yes.
The same to all of you.
Thanks, Jennifer, you too.
Thank you.